to Off the Shelf. I'm your host, Yvonne Wolf. Today, our special guest is returning author Alina Rubin with 3 more books: No Job for a Woman, Hearts by the Sea, and Abigail's Song. Welcome back, Alina.
Thank you. Good to be here again.
Yes, now you continue writing, and they are part of your Hearts and Sails series, right? Can you tell us about those 2 books first?
Sure. So my first book, A Girl with a Knife, we talked about it last time I was here. That was my first book I ever wrote. But that's where my character Ella gets her medical education. She wanted to do something with all that knowledge. So the second book of the series, No Job for a Woman, she goes on a ship to help the wounded and sick sailors.
Yeah, I remember it was an adventure from her first book, and it ends with off she goes on a ship.
That's right.
Yes,
So that's the second book now. And then I wrote a prequel where Ella is young. She's 13 years old. She doesn't know yet that she wants to study medicine. It's a prequel, yeah. Hearts by the Sea. Mm-hmm. And it's a kind of an idyllic summer. It's a coming of age story. She meets a young boy, and she gets inspiration for her future journey, and so does he.
Yes, and this is a 18th century mostly, right?
Early 19th century.
Early 19th century.
Napoleonic Wars.
So tell us about how you set up the schedule for writing a series. I mean, you were sure you were going to write a series.
I think I figured out early on that there's so much to talk about Ella and how she's growing that it can't fit into one book, that it has to be a series. And as she grows, there's like more and more to tell. She first learns medicine, then she can help the sailors. Once she gets the respect of her crew, she can go wherever they go, or any kinds of adventure can happen to her. So I feel like the series can continue. She's still very young in the second book. There's plenty to write about it, in the third or maybe more books.
But is she did she go on this ship as a woman or as a man? Because that's, maybe I'm not, I hope I'm not giving away the book.
Well, that's actually, it's written there on the back side. It explains all that. Yeah, she decides, she takes the lessons from the first book and says, no, I'm going to be a woman. And that's harder because now
more challenges.
More challenges because now she's the only woman on this ship, and sailors don't feel very well, just kind of don't trust women, and there's all that superstition that women bring bad luck to the ship, to the sailors, so they don't want her there from the beginning, and when she just steps foot on the ship, and when they learn that she's here to practice surgeries, amputations, they think that's so strange for a woman to do that, so they even like her less. So that's a lot of challenges for her to win their respect.
So what are some challenges you didn't anticipate in writing this book?
It just, when you're going to write about the sea, there's a lot of terminology. You have to learn about how it was a life on the ship and everything that the crew may do and how is it to live on the ship. And there's a lot of details about what people could eat, what could they do, what kind of schedule, what it all anticipates. And it's certain vocabulary for how sailors used to talk.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn about that.
So were you interested at all in sailing and ship life?
I think I was interested. Yes, once I watched movies like Master and Commander and Hornblower, I was in love with sailing ships. I wanted to read more about them, to write about them. It's certainly one of those my fantasies. I have like my screen on my computer is a sailing ship.
I see. So this took off. So what kind of, tell us about your research, because I saw some pictures on Facebook that you were out on these big, tall sail ships.
Tall ship windy. Right? So this is the closest I could get to a sail ship in Chicago. We have the tall ship windy from Navy Pier, right. And I took my family on it. So that's a fun cruise to do. And they do have an educational cruise where they would show things about the cables, the sails, give some information, teach kids to tie a knot or to help them raise the sails. So that's a lot of fun and some education to do. And there are, of course, wonderful ship museums in England, but there, and maybe some in the United States, but this is as close as we have in Chicago. So that was my part of my research here.
Yeah, wow. And you have so much reading to do. I
Yeah.
remember your the volumes you showed me. That was over what, 20 pounds of reading?
Oh my God,
Right?
yes. The books on sailing, they have often lots of pictures. They are this thick, and I've purchased some. Had some from the library. I remember I brought this book about Admiral Nelson. It was like this thick, and then I found out it's the second book. There's another book that's just as big that's on his early career.
Oh, so you are behind even when you get started. Well, so have you? Where do you find the time to read and to write? Because you work full time.
I do work full time. I do a lot of writing early in the morning. I wake up early. It's quiet in the house, and I do as much writing as I can. And I usually read and research in the evening after work. And weekends is also, that's much part of my weekend is goes into writing and reading.
Yes, yes. And so, do you find those vocabulary difficult to pick up, or do they help because there's so much diagram in these books and about ships? And now you've been on one, it must make more sense, right? Because it's hard to, for me anyway, to imagine just learning about sailing through books.
Right. I mean, some of these books even have glossaries. What I found, it's also a challenge not to give too much to readers because nobody wants to pick up that glossary just for them to read. So I had to balance and ask better readers, did I give them too much information?
Yeah.
But at first I wanted to be accurate, so I actually made friends with a gentleman from England who spent years working in a naval museum, and he read my book and
How lucky.
gave me a lot of feedback.
Oh, that must be an excellent source, right? It's almost
Absolutely.
have a teacher go through this with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us some of the things he told you about. Like what did he explain to you?
Some of the vocabulary I used to say riggings because there's many. He said riggings. It's a rigging. It's always plural. He was kind of directing me to different books. He found me that he said, some books they always say, have this term, but it's actually incorrect. On ships you say, or many books say port and
Star.
yeah.
Starboard, yeah.
And he said no. At the time it was larboard and starboard.
Oh.
Yes. So vocabulary had changed over the time,
Updated,
and he would talk about that.
So you need a guide to help you update the vocabulary, right?
Yes, to know what was right for the older period if you're going further into history.
Yeah. Well, how fascinating! How fascinating for historic fiction. So, what about Abigail's song? Now, you told me that you learned a lot about Jewish history.
Yes. Abigail's song it just took me by surprise. I was not planning to write a book outside the series. I thought to write a short novella that maybe I could use for competition or just something to give to readers, something short. And I thought a nice story would be about Abigail. She was a patient in A Girl with a Knife, so she was a side character, an orphan, adopted by Ella's friend Ali and his family, and it later revealed that they are a Jewish family.
Yes, I remember the character. Yes, go ahead and tell us about her life.
Right. So I thought maybe I'll continue the story. Does she go to an orphanage and then Ollie takes her out of there? What happens when she comes to this Jewish family? And I still, in my mind, it was just a short novella. But as I was writing it, I kept just getting more and more into story and seeing the side characters more clearly. And so I decided to write about this little girl growing up in a religious Jewish family in England. And as she grows up, becomes a teenager, makes choices. Does she want to become Jewish? Does she want to marry somebody Jewish because she's in love? I give her talent for music, so where does that talent take her? And so this became her journey that she takes with her new family.
I see. And then this is now Abigail's Song is part of a new series called Hearts in Harmony. What do you plan to do with that series?
Right. So it went from a story to a full novel, and I realized there's more to her journey. She never finds her father. There's more that can happen as far as her romantic story. So I thought this book deserves a sequel. So That's some. I don't have a name for it yet, but I did say that Abigail's song is book one, and there will be a book two for her to continue her journey and grow as a person.
So you're really setting the schedule for yourself, are you?
I hope this year to write both books. I don't know if that will happen, but I kind of go with I write one book at a time, and
I
the
see.
ones
Okay.
that's with an editor, that's when I can start book two. But I always have ideas and I jot them down, and who knows what will actually go into the book and what will not.
Yeah, I see. There's just so much to organize, right? So much information to organize. And what are you hearing from your readers?
All kinds of things. Some are impressed with the research. Some love my characters. Many can't wait for the next book about Ella.
Yeah.
It's very fun to see an email when somebody says, "I really need that third book already."
Yeah. You're getting pressure
Yes.
from your readers. Oh, that's wonderful. That's fascinating. That
Mhm.
means your character is so real. And I liked her too when I
Mhm.
read the first book. Now, you have a very active social media and marketing plan, don't you? Tell me about how you developed that.
I do it all myself. I sometimes make graphics. Just whenever there's some kind of event, like I won an award for Girl with a Knife. It's soon to be famous Illinois author. Whenever some kind of event, I post about it. I find that people like personal pictures or something that I'm doing, something about my journey as a writer. So I'm just open about it, and I usually use Facebook and Instagram and tell the readers what I'm doing.
Yes, you're just constantly, I'm just so impressed. The pace of all that social marketing, and you're writing your 3 books, right, since then. So you have, you go to libraries too, don't you?
I,
Tell us about that.
I spend a lot of time sometimes to stick reference books. That's where
Well,
I
I mean,
would
you
find
speak
them.
there,
Oh, to
right?
speak? Sure. Yes, I
Yes.
do. Yeah, when I get invited, I love getting chances to speak in the library. Sometimes we discuss books. Sometimes I tell people about self-publishing. There's a lot to say, and many people they write, they think they can publish a book, and I absolutely want to help. Nonfiction sometimes is great because it establishes people as authority in their fields, whatever they do, and as well as some people want to try their hand in fiction, and I want to help.
So what is one advice you have for self-publishing?
I would say it's great you remember that you're in control of everything from writing, editing. You may not be the artist to make the cover, but it's your ideas on the cover. So pay attention to all parts of the process. Don't be afraid to learn new skills. I had to learn how to maintain a website. I had to learn how to format my books. So get comfortable with technology and own the whole process.
So do you have an editor that you use to give you your final cut?
Absolutely. I work very closely with my editor. She does development edit, so which is checking the story, that there are no plot holes, that characters are well developed, that it's even tone, all that. Then she does line editing, that's making sure that every word is the right word and it sounds as nice as possible. And finally, there's proofreading, which is spelling, grammar, just all the and sometimes even just looking at the page, making sure that it looks good, that words are not repeated, that you don't have one sentence kind of hanging on the page that maybe you need to shorten so you don't have that.
So this is one person that you have to do this for you. Right?
Currently, I use one person.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, that's great. That's great that you have someone, right?
Yes.
Because sometimes we don't know who to do this for.
Yeah, there
right?
are a lot of editors, and it's actually very important to have a conversation with somebody you're thinking to hire and get samples and get a feel that this is a person you can work with, that you're going to get a lot of feedback from your editor. Make sure that they like your book, they understand your style, and also be prepared to make changes based on all that feedback.
Right, right. So the style is something they have to pick up about
Mm-hmm.
how you write.
Yes, and try not to change it because sometimes some editors just wanted to make it their own book,
Right.
and
It
then
doesn't sound like you.
yeah,
After
then it
a while.
doesn't sound like anymore like you. You're no longer it's no longer your words, so you have to kind of be aware of that as well.
Well, what kind of research are you doing now for the next book? Let's say.
Next book, so Ella is going to find out that her friend Jamie is in a French prison. Maybe some other characters that she cares about are there as well. And so I'm reading books about French prisons where British used to live.
That must be very unsavory. Where a doctor could be very much
Yes.
come in handy, right?
Yes, absolutely. So, and actually, it varied. There were some whole towns where people just lived, and although supposedly they're in prison, but they were allowed to live in the town. Usually,
Really?
that happened to officers. Yes, so they actually had very nice lives sometimes. But
So
they,
like a penal colony, like not not a confinement, no, the same way.
kind of like that. They would just they had to give this parole, their word of a gentleman that they will not run away from there. But if they break any rules, like if they do try to run or they do something that the guards don't like, break some kind of a rule, then they may end up in the real prison or maybe even in the dungeon.
My goodness, I didn't know there were so many ways to do time, right?
Yes.
Oh, here's your character continue to develop as a surgeon.
Hmm. Yes. So she will be there. She'll find some more work for herself, some more people she can help.
Does she
Yes.
learn French or something else or other skills?
I haven't really gotten that far, but she already speaks French. That was kind of part of her upbringing.
Yes.
She had wealthy parents. She had tutors as a young child. So even in No Job for a Woman, there are some moments where she's already speaking French.
Well, Alina, tell us how you feel connected to Glenview.
So my first apartment was in Glenview in Talisman Village. Now I live under the Glenview Park District. It's in Niles, still in the district. And my daughter takes all kinds of classes through the Park District. She's doing ice skating. She plays the ukulele. Yes, and she's been in Park District camps in Glenview. So we're very much part of the life in this village.
So Glenview is able to provide her with a very active summer, right?
Absolutely.
You have some
yes.
plans for her summer
For
camp?
next, well, she's 12. She's now telling me that she's too old for summer camp. And
She does. Yeah, I didn't know she's already 12.
Yes,
Yeah,
we'll see what we still have to decide what she'll do. Maybe just gonna have a lot of time with me to, to go to the pool and things like that.
Alina, does romantic love play a big role in Abigail's song?
It does, and that was different for me to write because in Ella's journey, it doesn't play as much. She's so focused on being a doctor. Well, Abigail, very much a person who loves, and it starts for her early. Her friend David, he saves her. By the age of 15, she feels like she's in love with him. She feels like it's her destiny to be with him, even though there are different religions. He's much older, and she feels like she needs to do whatever she can to overcome that someday he will see her as a right partner, as somebody who could be his wife. So a lot of her journey, whether it's music, whether it's helping the family, it's often she's thinking about David all the time.
Wow. Oh, so
Yeah,
that
she
must
says,
be very
Bashir,
difficult.
Yes,
Yeah.
it
Bashir.
is.
She believes in Bashir.
Yes,
Well,
her destiny, yes.
I think you have a Bashir story you shared with me once.
I do, and it's so fitting that today is our anniversary of our first date with my husband. I met my husband on 2002 at 2 o'clock. And you were like, oh my God, that's got to be destiny with a date like that.
Yes. And remember now, you told me this story, so I want you to tell the story to us. But how did you meet? It wasn't that easy. It didn't work out the first time or something like that.
Right, yes.
Tell
My
us
friend told us that we should meet, that we should write to each other, and
that's like by email, right?
yeah, it was still by email 2000. Yeah, or maybe I think there was like first applications where you could chat with somebody. But I was kind of shy. I wasn't sure that I wanted to meet, and I think at some point she told me, maybe it's not a good idea. We really don't know this person that well. Maybe you shouldn't go. So I said no. And then later, I met him again. Somebody else wanted us to introduce, and then we finally did meet, and it just happened to be on that day.
But wasn't it your grandmother who saw a wanted ad, personal?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Your grandmother saw a personal wanted ad. And tell us how that panned out.
Yeah, she did. That's exactly. Yeah, it was a paper that I guess she enjoyed reading, and she found that ad. And she said, "This sounds like a good ad. I think you should answer it." And it was funny. The ad was written not by my current husband. It was by his mom. She wanted to get him.
She wrote it, and then your grandmother saw it, and then
Yeah.
your grandmother told you to write to him,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then it wasn't something that the email didn't work out.
You know, how did that
That's why I thought you. That's why we've been friends so long.
That's right. Yeah, the email address didn't work, so I had to write a letter that went to a PO box, and later he wrote back and apologized that the paper printed the wrong email address.
So he
Yes.
didn't get anybody's response but yours.
That's right. Yes.
And then your first date, you just said was 2002,
Yeah, 2002 at 2 o'clock. We were in
February the 2nd
Yeah.
at 2 p.m.
2
Wow.
p.m. Yes, we
What
went
a
to restaurant was Hooligans at the time. Yeah, and then we went to see a movie, The Royal Tenenbaums.
Well, I hope that was a movie that was just the right comedy to make everyone more relaxed and right.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, so tell us. Okay, now you wrote 3 books within about 2 years' time. Well, since we saw you last, how did you fit that in? I know you told us a little bit about working on weekends, but give us a typical situation where you prioritize writing than something else.
So once I'm getting into the story, I can write fast, and I would say that I have a draft of a book in about 3 months. It has plenty of mistakes. Not everything is developed, but if somebody picks it up, they can follow a story. And then I write a second draft, and that may take me another 3 months to kind of polish it and develop everything. And after that, I need the beta reader, and then I give it to my editor. But once it with my editor, or maybe some other times, I'm already working on something else. I may have notes, I may have a scene. So even though I'm working on this one book, there's a little bit already some breadcrumbs for me to start the next book. And also with my reading, I may be reading something for one book and then a book for that may help me with the next thing. I take notes when I think this is something I can use. So I think with that combined, things go faster. And Abigail, I was writing, I think, even at the same time as A Girl with a Knife. So I just did not publish it right away. But I had a lot of it done, when No Job for a Woman came out. And Hearts by the Sea, it's a short book. It probably took me a month to write the story and polish it. So that didn't take as much time as others.
But Hearts by the Sea is a prequel, so you know your character and you were tying in with your current stage of the character development. Is that what?
That's right, yeah. So you already know the characters. But the new characters, and that was actually a good practice, was for me to write the love interest in that book, Jamie, because he's going to come about in the next book and in prison. So I was writing him as a young boy. Now we're going to jump into when he's going to be a young man.
Very nice.
Yeah, get to practice with his voice a little bit.
So tell us, as a very prolific and fast writer, I still am impressed with that. So Alina, what is your message out there for writers?
I would say it's important for writers to find their tribe. And a lot of people don't realize it. They think they just need to write their stories, but they need help of other people to help them and promote their stories. So Toastmasters is my tribe, my writing club is my tribe, my book clubs are my tribe, and those people in those clubs are often very excited about my writing, and once the book is out, they're my first readers, and they tell other people about the books, and every writer needs that.
They're your cheerleaders, aren't they?
Absolutely.
So that's a great advice. Thank you, Alina, for joining us again.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching. Join us next time on Off the Shelf.